Hello and welcome to another installment of TMO.live, the Media Online's video series where we explore the hot topics and ask newsmakers the tough questions. Recently on the site, we published an article written by myself, which looked at the new ICASA regulations and what potential impact they could have on community radio. If you haven't read the article, I suggest you do. Today, we take that community radio conversation further. My guest to share his insights is Nkopane Maphiri. He's Business Development Director at the Media Connection. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's no secret that Media Connection is passionate about community radio. In terms of, apart from the new regulations from ICASA, how's the space looking at the moment?
We're actually existing in very interesting times. Community radio is a Media Connection. That's what we do. This is what is our DNA mainly. So the space is quite interesting. The growth has been quite significant. We are seeing stations that are really punching above their weight, delivering the kind of audiences that we're actually looking at. We're talking about almost 9 million listeners that are listening to community radio over a 7-day period. That is no small number. It's quite a massive audience. So we're quite excited that we actually are, the kind of go-to people to access that market.
So what is the appeal of community radio? You said it's such a big audience. Why do people listen to community radio over the bigger stations? What does community radio offer?
Community radio, there's a specific local, definite local community flavor that it has. It has that particular flavor. The secret recipe, call it that. And it's in its local content. The type of kind of content that how it gets packaged, because it's real, it's immediate, it's responsive, and it's a reflection of those kind of communities. So it will have those particular local community nuances that it actually has. And we're seeing that South Africans are yearning for what is local content and how they define local content. So if you are in a specific geographical catchment area, the station that speaks about issues that are in your area, not to the exclusion of what's happening outside your area. So there's a comfortable blend of the things that are actually happening. So for lack of a better word, it is the kind of the radio that is determined by its own listeners. So that's what makes it an appealing proposition for most of the audiences. And we're seeing people spending more time listening to those stations on an average quarter hour.
But the picture's not all rosy. What challenges is community radio facing?
I think the biggest challenge is the resource issue. The stations are quite resource constrained at the moment. The issues around the high staff turnover. I think we've come to embrace the kind of high staff turnover because we understand that the sector must be the reservoir for talent, where it has throughput people, identify raw talent and actually train them, pass them through. But the challenges remain, by and large, resource constraints, so people have got to bootstrap their operations all the time in order for them to keep going. So those sort of things that are quite challenging at the sector at the moment. But with all those challenges, people's innovation and creativity shines through.
Speaking about the talent, Media Connection recently set up an academy to train people in the ways of community radio. How did that come about, and what has the reception been like for the new training institution?
I think in our value chain, it became very obvious that this is the next thing that we've got to do. As we're dealing with advertising as the main core of our business, we then realized that there's actually much more that we can actually do because the stations really needed that. There was a gap in that space, and we felt it's necessary for us to actually provide that gap. And our academy specifically is going to look at the business of radio, understanding it from a community radio perspective and how to actually professionalize that space and to make sure that it becomes cutting edge. So the reception has been exceptionally well received. We've done our first 2-3 sort of pilot training programs that we've done. We've recently been accredited as well as an accredited training institution by the MICT CETA. So we are at that point where we say we actually are pushing through for the academy to deliver on its mandate. And the stations have actually quite embraced it, and people are coming through, enrolling for our programs. We soon going to be publishing our annual calendar in terms of what are the programs that we're going to be having. And we're going to be bringing in some industry experts to come in and share their knowledge with the community radio practitioners. So we're quite excited about that particular space, and we want to continue to ensure that we actually continue to contribute to build to this talent reservoir, so to speak.
So how many people have been through the academy so far?
So far, we've done about 3 programs, and in totally we can about 60 people that have come through that. But we also have had internship placements that we've had over the past 3-4 years. So well over 200 people have been placed on with our internship program through the partnership we've got with the MICT CETA, because we've got such a huge number of stations that are out there, and by extension extension, the number of people. I mean, currently we're placing about 35 interns at different radio stations throughout the country, and we're planning for another 35, and we just finished another 40 that just finished a couple of months ago. So it's really a rolling machine at this point in time. And for us, we want to see the kind of impact that we want to create, is that people should actually experience radio as how it should be, and from a community perspective, that's where the cold face is at. So if people can come through that space, they could survive any other environment.
Well, hopefully this academy will help with the demand. And one of the things which may increase demand is the local quotas for music and content, which has been big in the news recently. Do you think how is this going to affect community stations, and do you think that they have the resources and the people, the staff needed to meet these new quotas?
Interestingly enough, when the regulator published those, we looked at it and said, but this is how community radio has been from the beginning. I mean, we've always been exceeded the kind of local content quotas, so it's well received in the community radio space. That says this is one sector that has really been pushing local content, which is, for all intents and purposes, we think this is what contributed to the growth and the success of the station. So we looked at it and we said, with what the regulator has put as a minimum threshold now, easily we're able to meet that, and there will be some stations who will comfortably exceed those limits. So it's not a major problem from a sector perspective, because remember, the local content is also defined in a sense that not only the published musicians, those that have got record labels behind them, there will be also these new and upcoming artists that go to the radio stations who would seek the kind of exposure, and the stations are more than happy to actually accept that kind of music and push that, because this is where you actually identify the kind of new talent. I mean, if you go back many years with the evolution of the kwaito music as a genre of music, it grew at the back of community radio, because it came in right at the time when community radio was actually starting, and stations were pushing nothing else but local kwaito music, and it actually contributed to the audience growth and by extension to the popularity of the music genre.
So this could be the starting point, the growth point for new types of music in South Africa, community radio.
Absolutely. We've seen it happen, as I said, with kwaito. Now we're seeing it happen with local hip-hop. So without any shade of doubt that indeed there's a natural partnership here between the local music industry and community radio stations, certainly.
Community radio is certainly a fascinating space. Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it. That was Nkopane Maphiri, Business Development Director at the Media Connection.